So it's two words. It's called imperfect action. Okay. There is no perfection. You should understand that. You're never going to be perfect.
And welcome back to the Money, the Mindset, and the Mentoring podcast. Today, we're gonna hit the bag hard. We're going to be able to punch out some really good ideas. We're here today with Richard Walsh. He is the owner. He is the CEO of Sharpen the Spear Coaching. He's also an author. He wrote a book about helping people really get out of the prison of ownership, escape the owner prison, and really helping a lot of blue-collar businesses really get their businesses in order so that they can scale. And Richard, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. I know you've been prolific in the podcasting space, really out there, really getting known. And now we're going to share some of the amazing nuggets that you have with our great audience. So thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Steve, man. I'm excited for this. It's great.
Now, I know one of the things you really talk about, and I love the thing that you say is like everything sort of, when you mention things kind of come in threes. And so one of the things that we were talking about in the preamble is really talking about the idea of automate, delegate, and eliminate. And this is one of the key principles that really you have at Sharpen the Spear Coaching. So talk to me a little bit about what that means to you and how that applies to people's business.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a philosophy you want to work in. So automate, delegate, eliminate. So we understand automate, right? We want to automate whatever we can so it runs itself. And that can be virtual assistants, it's CRMs, it's all your software, it's systemization in itself. Secondly is delegation, right? You want to delegate. The big problem, though, Steve, is people do this wrong, and we won't get into the real depths of it. They abdicate. They tell someone to do something, but they don't have a clue how to do it. They haven't built a lane for them to perform their task to the best of their abilities. They're not given the ability to run with the ball to get to the goal line. So the big problem there in delegation. But elimination, we get that too. For the most part, it's like, hey, cost overruns, inefficiencies, you want to eliminate that kind of stuff, right? But what they forget, need to eliminate themselves as the owner. You need to back out of that and get where you're focused on just the 5% of your business only you can do as an owner, right? Vision, marketplace, landing the big clients.
When we look at those three, I think it's really interesting to kind of break them out on the idea of automate. And one of the things that has been sort of fundamental for me whenever looking at automation is there's an old Bostonian phrase, and it says, don't pave a cow path. And that to me has always been something that I thought has been very interesting, especially if you've been in the North End. Well, it does give a lot of culture because it feels really good because it's tight knit and very confusing to get around in the North End of Boston. It's not really good for efficiency. And so a lot of times when people think of automate, they look at their processes as they are today, not as how they could be automated in an effective way. So what are some key things that people need to do when they're looking at an automated process?
So you really want to think. So we have to think forward, like you said. I think it's a really good observation, right? So the problem with people is they get comfortable and they're doing things and they're using the system and they're getting by. They don't want to be uncomfortable. So they have to understand, like, whatever you're going to automate with is going to be new. It's going to be a challenge. There's going to be adjustment, and you have to understand that and have the willingness to approach that. If you don't have the mindset right there, you're not going to do it because you're going to get the first bump, which would be like 5 seconds into the new system. You're going to throw your hands up and walk out of the office and say, this doesn't work, right? That's what happens to people at certain moments.
The other thing too is when you talk about people at certain levels, when we're talking about automations, we're also talking about people. And, you know, as you said, you can automate with VAs, you can automate with using other individuals, you can automate with technology. It's the idea of putting in something that's a repeatable process. But in doing so, you really have to deal with people. And that goes down to the idea of delegate. And when you're talking about delegation, I think you really hit the nail on the head, is the idea that when you're really looking at delegating something, you're not looking at just giving away the process. You said not abdicate, you said delegate. And the idea of abdication is saying that I just don't want to do this, so you go do this. And where delegation is says, I need you to do this. Here's how you're going to do this. And then here's how we're going to measure that. So let's flesh that out a little bit more around the idea of delegation.
Yeah, so take this, okay? You don't put systems into people. You put people into systems. That's a critical distinction. You may have a great office manager, best in the world, but they don't really have systems. You're not going to build a system around that person because everybody leaves. All right. We need to understand that as business, everybody leaves. Might be in 5 months, might be in 5 years, might be in 20 years, but they're going to leave. So we need to plug someone back into the system. So the system, that lane that they operate in, that's what we want to build out. That's systemization. You create that so no matter who comes in, they can be up to speed in 5 to 7 days and perform it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're running towards the goal line, right?
Well, you look at talent versus discipline, and you look at a football team as an example. I mean, you got to have a bunch of talented people, but if you don't have plays, nobody knows where to go. And so the talent needs to follow the system. And when you blend those two things together, you really get some magic.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Because if I have a great closer, a sales guy comes on the team, what they don't want to do, Steve, they don't want to build my business. They don't want to systemize my business. They don't want to systemize my sales department. They want to close deals. They want to sell, close deals, make money for themselves, their family, and the company. But if you're going to drop them and think they're going to fix your business, they'll be there for like 3 days and they're going to leave. You can't drop it. No matter how good they are, they're not going to do that. So it's really important to understand if you want to attract the great people, you have to be systemized. You have to have the lane they can drop in and run. Give them the ability to win. Let them know what success looks like every day.
Absolutely. And the success is paramount to be for the company, all the stakeholders. Stakeholders, one of them being obviously the employee. And so it has to be success for them as well. And when you're looking at the way that they interpret success, you're absolutely right. There's different personality types. And if you can actually hone in on creating success for their specific personality type, for their specific personal identity, then they're going to really claim ownership around that success.
Exactly. And it's so critical because people work for purpose. That's what they want to work for. Money's like third on the list. Right? We need to understand that. Like if you can build purpose in your entire business, the lane that they're in, give them the metrics to succeed, what they look like daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. Like what does that look like? You give them that, they can be very focused. No one wants a mystery job where they're getting thrown stuff every day from every angle. They don't know what's going to happen day to day. No one's staying in a place like that. They can't win. That's just chaos.
It's so interesting around the idea of rewards and personal rewards, because when you look at the definition and helping people really define what success is, then they can find purpose. And in their purpose, they can start to do hard things because it's part of their purpose. And as they start doing hard things, that really creates true fulfillment. Because as we know, I know in the mornings you love hitting those heavy bags. You love doing your shadow boxing every morning, and it's not easy getting up that time in the morning. But those hard things give you fulfillment. And that's the thing, that if what your purpose is, you'll commit to doing hard things, and you commit to hard things, you get fulfillment. That's so much better than just being happy. And creating fulfilled employees is better than having happy employees.
Yeah, and a really good point you just made there too, I'll pull this out, is recognition. So we got purpose. That's number one they're looking for. Number two is recognition and quality feedback. Am I doing a good job? You can't just because, a superstar is a superstar, but they still need recognition, right? You can't just expect them to keep doing great things without patting them on the back at least, giving some public recognition, things like that. They're looking for that feedback. Am I actually doing a good job? How can I get better? Because if they have the system, they're performing, they still want to get better because that's who they are. So now you got to create the tools along their journey, not only fulfill purpose, but give them an ability to learn and improve and become even better.
Well, and as they start to see recognition, I think recognition feeds that one thing that feeds discipline. Because I think discipline is one of those things that everybody focuses on. They say, oh, you got to be disciplined, got to be disciplined. Well, discipline can fade away because if you don't have anything that feeds success, in other words, feeds your willpower to stay sustained in discipline, you're going to start to fall out of discipline. And so those rewards-based approach to be able to just acknowledge somebody's contribution. Hey, great job, Sally, at that last report. It really knocked it out of the park. Awesome. You closed up the sales this month. We hit the target. Thank you. And just the little things that you can do to really add value in the business. Those are the things that are going to give that person that micro win, which is going to feed that discipline so they can really go for the big purposeful things that they're working on.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to add to the discipline, we go back to the threes. We have discipline, diligence, and determination. Okay, so you have to, that's the three things. Like discipline's good, but you have to be diligent, right? It's consistency that wins. It's not 2 workouts a month isn't going to get you fit, right? It's day in, day out. That's diligent. Determination is you have to have an end goal. You have to know where you're going to reach that. Otherwise, you're just adrift. It's no good. So we really got to you put all three of those together and you share those with your team. Like this is how it actually worked. This is how you succeed with these three things. It gives them even more clarity.
Absolutely. And the last thing is eliminate. I think eliminate is one of those things where a lot of people think committed means that you just don't give up. And when you stop something, eliminate something, people might confuse quitting with elimination. And sort of help flush out the idea around what elimination means to you and how people can use that it can play a really pivotal role in their strategy for building their business.
Yeah, so when you look at elimination, sometimes you have to give something up to get more, right? So sometimes you're going to eliminate to make room for more things. So it doesn't mean eliminate, never fill the space. You can get rid of the stuff that's really dragging, that your heels are dragging, right? There's extra weight on the company. It can't move at speed. As I always tell people, they don't make race cars heavier. They make them lighter, right? But we want more horsepower. So let me take some weight off and let me add some horsepower so we can move faster forward, right? So that's what elimination is. And when I talked about, as an owner, believe me, most owners, especially the ones I work with in my niche, are in the way. They're in their own way. They're not letting their people do what they can do best. When you eliminate you as an owner, and I just mean you're going to work on that 5% of only what you can do, everyone else can thrive. Now you're picking up horsepower. You just increase your horsepower by lightening the load of your either micromanagement or inability to let go of the hammer, so to speak, right? Put the tools down and let the workers work, right?
I think there's a lot of when you go from that solopreneur to the entrepreneur, there's a change in what you need to do to be successful. When you become a solopreneur, you're so focused on quality. You're so focused on you as you're bringing the value to the equation. As you move into the entrepreneur space, you still have a maintained focus on quality, but it's quality and success through others, not through you. And so that pivot that you do in your brain around the idea of that I did this needs to change to we did this. And then it's eventually they did this and they did this within my business. And the more that you can transition that way, the more that you can, as you say, get out of the way so that the people in your organization can be successful. And it doesn't mean don't monitor it. It doesn't mean don't measure it. It doesn't mean, don't maintain it. What it means is you're allowing the other people to be able to get into the system of success so that you can get onto a higher problem to solve.
Yeah, I think what people don't realize, and there's a lot of employee bashing. It's a real popular thing to do. No one wants to work. No one, blah, blah, everyone's late. Okay, you can believe that if you want, but really it's because you haven't built something where someone who is good wants to come and perform. There's a lot of amazing people out there that want to kill it. Everyone wants to work for purpose, and that's part of their job, right? Like we talked about earlier. But if you don't give them a place to do that, get out of the way, understand who you're hiring, why you're bringing them to the team, and then let them run. Give them the authority to do it. They need the authority. They need that. If you're a knight and you're on one knee, I got my sword. I'm going to, tap the two shoulders. Now go get it. Go out and take care of business, right? I want to christen them to do that, right? And then give them the authority and get out of their way. If you do that, you're going to attract the great people. And that's where you're going to succeed. You're going to be able to scale comfortably and make really big things happen, because now you can sit back and see the big things, understand you've got the team to do it that's going to be able to drive forward in an excited way. So it's real powerful.
Absolutely. I think when people are out looking for employees and they're constantly finding bad employees, they're constantly finding people who quit on them, don't get the job done, never seem happy. There's one constant theme, one constant person who shows up to every one of those hires. There's one constant person that shows every one of those people who get, when they're on the team, and one constant person when they leave the team. And that person is you. You're the one who did it. You're the one who hired them. You're the one who trained them. You're the one who fired them. So what needs to be solved? Is it the employee's problem, or is it yourself who needs to solve it? And I think that right there, you hit the nail absolutely on the head. is you need to be introspective about yourself and say, what are you doing as a leader to contribute to their success, and let them knock it out of the park, let them take ownership and really thrive.
Yeah, it's so important. Well, I'll give you one other tip, an actionable tip in hiring. Do not hire the unemployed. Just think about that for a minute. They're unemployed for a reason. Unless they got laid off last night, okay, and they're talking today, there's a reason they haven't worked in a month, 2 months, 3 months. Remember that. Like, don't even go there. Like, poach from somewhere else, right? Go find great people in their job place where they are. It might not be their favorite place to be. I do it all the time. I'll see them at a Home Depot or wherever else I'm at, right? Depending on what I need. And someone who's doing their job well, really well, compliment them, talk to them. Hey, if you're ever interested, I'm always looking for great people. Love to talk to you. Hand them a card, do the whole exchange, right? You don't know if they're happy there, because the good people perform regardless of their environment. They're just who they are. And man, do you want those people on your team?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is if you're trying to collect nuts out of a tree, you're not going to hire a racehorse to do it. You're going to hire a squirrel. And so you want that person who's already in action. You want that person who has the skills. And if they're already in action, they have the skills, they probably are employed. And yeah, if there's a circumstance that makes them unemployed, they're probably going to be quickly employed. And if they've been unemployed for a bunch of years, and there's nothing that dictates why they've been that way, it's going to be very hard, because then at that point, you're really training them to get back into action. It's not even the idea of the job. It's the idea of just being in action is the first thing that they need to do. Like when we have somebody who joins the gym for jiu-jitsu, the first little bit is just getting in the repetition of showing up. I mean, they just need to be able to show up every day. That's the first thing you got to do, is just get them committed to showing up. They don't have to learn anything. And then after that, then you get them into the rhythm of, okay, now we're going to start to break down the idea of what you think fighting's all about. It's systems and models. It's not just rage. And so now we're going to go into systems and models. And now we're going to break down the breathing. And now we can finally get you into learning jiu-jitsu. And that's the same thing with an employee but if they've already come and they're at another gym and they're coming over and they've got a baseline of just, say they came up from another sport, wrestling, or say they came from boxing or something, they already know the regiment. They already know to show up every day. They don't need to be taught the fundamentals. And so the fundamentals of showing up, the person who's already engaged is the person who already knows how to do that.
Yeah, and that's a great place to start, right? That's what I mean. That's your A player range and your B and B plus players. They can come. We can always increase competency, right? That's an easy thing for us to do. We can train people, we can make them better, but it's what you're saying. What do you start with? Do they have what's their resting heart rate? Let's just put it at that. Where they at there? Let's check fitness right from there. Where are they at there? And now we can see what they can take, right? And now we're going to pressure test and take it from there. But those people have had to have experience different levels of that kind of stuff, because that experience is what gives them the ability to adapt and improve quickly.
Yeah, I know when I go on holidays, if I take a week off, I'm probably not on holidays. If I take 2 weeks off, I might be on holidays. If I take 3, I'm finally like in action mode. I can actually sit at the beach for about 6.5 minutes and not be thinking, okay, what should I do now? And we get to 7, I got to go do something, but at least I can make to 6.5. But the idea is I'm getting to that calm mind of just now I'm becoming less purposeful. And the more time that I operate in less purposeful, it takes a lot more for me to get back into inertia of purpose. Now, if somebody has something else in their life that has been driven them into purpose, and now they're transitioning a purpose of A to purpose of B. So we work with a lot of women who transition into raising some children. And believe me, that is a full-time job, raising kids. I mean, that is something that, they really have to dial into, whoever is the person who stays at home to look after the kids. And then when they're ready to transition back into the workplace, they've already been working. They've been up at night at 3:00 in the morning. They've been dealing with unhappy employees, AKA the children. And they've been dealing with really tough situations, and they've been really leading the family. And so if they're transitioning out of something that is maybe not revenue-based employment, but it's non-revenue-based employment, I could see that as a hall pass, because that's something that they've been able to demonstrate, at least that they have the work ethic in what they've been doing. It's the sitting on the couch eating the Cheetos. No thanks.
Yeah, it's what I tell them about that position. My wife is that position, right? Homeschooled our kids all the way through, right? It's the most noble position. To me, a mother in a home raising the children and homeschooling, there's no more noble a position. So if I have a woman who has gone through that whole thing, she wants to come back into work for, I'm all in.
Every mother who's come into our mortgage business who came out of raising children back into them are killers. They're just killers. Like, they're unstoppable. There's nothing that's going to phase them. They're the best people to bring into your workforce.
Yeah, just think about what they do on a daily basis, raising those kids. I'm talking from diapers to the whole thing. I mean, that is managing, the herding cats, principle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. It's so powerful. So where they've been. So it's not, the day our first arrived, my wife stopped working. Well, from Chicago Board of Trade to hasn't worked since. 20 years now. 20 years on, another week. 20 years, but she does more now than when she worked. So yeah, they're awesome, man. You got to tap into that. There's someone coming back in. You can mold that really quickly in your business.
Oh yeah, we as I said, in our mortgage business, real approved, man. Anybody who comes from being a mom and says, I want to re-enter the workforce, game on, let's go. Anybody who's a stay-at-home parent who says, I want to come back into the workforce, game on, let's go. Because you've learned so much from that space. There's a lot of transitional skills to learn. There's a lot of tech stuff that you might have to pick up but that's just, again, as we said before, you're just learning content at that point. That's easy to teach. But that attitude, that mindset, that stuff is unteachable. That is just, that is in the DNA.
It is the mindset.
Yeah.
It really is people's focus. I would tell young guys who work for me if they weren't doing well, I said, you only have to do two things to succeed. Show up early and ask, what else can I do? I said, you'll be the stinking CEO before you know it. Because nobody does those two things. It's all punching in or whatever right at the minute, dragging their feet in, all that stuff, looking like trash from having a hard night or whatever, because everything's more important than their business, or their job, right? Show up early, ask what else you can do, and you'll just climb to the top effortlessly.
Now, I know you've run a program for people who they're in their day job, and while they're successful in their day job, they're looking for more. And they're starting to say, okay, I'm going to go into I think you call them entrepreneurs. I want to be an entrepreneur. And I'm kind of doing that transitionary moment to get into actually starting a business. What's some key advice can we give to them to say, here's the first couple steps that you need to take so that you're not going to find them out later when they become a pitfall?
So whatever the idea is, okay, we have to test the idea. Okay, so what is that? It's running it by people. It's napkin stuff, right? You drew it on a napkin, you're sitting there and you're like, got an idea and you write it down. Well, now you have to go share it and get feedback from, doesn't mean not your best friend. Your best friend's not going to tell you what you want, what you need to hear. Like, find as much of a stranger as you can and run this by, right? Oh, that'd be really good to have that. That'd be really, okay, well, why? Ask them a couple whys, like make them dig into it, because that's also going to make you think of why you're serving them. So there's a lot of little things like that you can do, because you want to see, would this even stand the test of viability in the market? What's actually more than my mother want this. Okay. Like, forget the friends and family. Okay. We got to get outside that and see if they'll buy. Friends and family are not a way to test. Horrible way to check anything.
Well,
because
friends
they
and
like
family,
you.
They like you or they don't like you. It's one of the two. And so, or they like you as you are, not as you're going to become. And so a lot of times friends and family can be lobsters in a pot and want to pull you down. They have a preconceived notion of what it makes you successful potentially. And so when you start deviating from the norm and doing something outside of the box, their reaction is to the change in you. Their reaction is not to what that change is. And so the idea of going to that perfect stranger, they have no preconceived notion of who you are. If you walk and say, hey, I'm the CEO of a tech startup, and I want to talk to you a little bit about an idea that we're releasing. Do you have 2 minutes just to listen about this to see if it's got some legs? Somebody's going to say, perfect. You haven't even said how big your tech startup is. You're not being disingenuous, but you are the CEO of a tech startup. And they will see you as that because they don't know you otherwise. And so I love that idea of going out and doing market testing with somebody else. Now, there's a lot of people who have the personality traits that sounds great, but they're terrified. They've got so much fear around that idea that they're going to get rejection. Somebody's going to say that's a stinking bad idea. And how do they overcome that fear?
So it's two words. It's called imperfect action. Okay. There is no perfection. You should understand that. You're never going to be perfect. The people get ready to get ready, that kind of mindset. It's like, understand you're going out to get negative reaction. That's the first thing. I expect someone to question this. When I launched my water feature business and I'm leaving Arizona to go to Chicago, my family basically laughed at me and said, "You'll be back in 3 months." Well, 20 years later, they want to work for me. Okay. They're all proud and I'm all this, right? I built all this stuff. Well, you can't listen to that. You have to have selective hearing. I call it selective hearing. Okay. So you have to understand that you're always going to be filtering negativity. Okay. The more negativity you get probably means you're actually trying harder, because people love negativity. When you go to online reviews, do you look for all the positive or do you look for the negative? The first thing you go for is the 1 and 2 and 3 stars. Yeah, they got 500 5-star. That doesn't matter. Show me the one bad guy. It'll negate like 50 of the 5-star, right? That's just how people think. They're just drawn to negativity. So you have to embrace that and go, okay, I'm going to anticipate this, but it's also going to make me better, because anyone who can poke holes in my idea is giving me the opportunity to fix it and bring it back to the marketplace stronger, so it has a higher probability of success. That's what we want. So that's where the fear, and I get it. People are afraid of public speaking and approaching people. I'm not saying go knock on doors, all day and ask people, but you're going to see people. I have them start with something as simple as, like, you created a logo. Like, walk up to people and say, "Can I ask you a question? Tell me what this is." And hold it up for like 3 seconds, put it down. What is it? What do I do? Does it speak to them? How do they speak to them, right? You can use something as simple as that. They're like, "I don't know what that was." Okay, well, I don't know what that was. Write that down. Go to the next person, having a clue. Okay, I better go after about 10 of those. I don't have a clue. You might want to go redo your logo, right? Save a lot of time, a lot of misery, but it's just market testing, right?
Absolutely. I think the idea of embracing fear around testing and market testing idea is embracing the idea. So to overcome the fear of market testing idea is embracing the idea that you're not looking for positive feedback. You're actually looking for negative feedback. And in doing so, you're turning negative feedback into positive feedback. So the only thing you're going to get is success. You get negative feedback, that's success. You get positive feedback, that's success. What's there to fear?
Yeah, it's awesome. That's probably the best I've ever heard it put. It's pretty good, Steve.
Hey, man, I listen to people and I learn. And that's the greatest thing about podcasting, is I get to spend time with wonderful people like yourself to build ideas. Because I think too many times what people do is they always have their idea when they go into a conversation, rather than work to build an idea together. And I think the more that people can spend time working together to build ideas, the greater this world's going to be, especially if people have differing ideas. You can build some amazing things.
That's what makes it work. Because you always, if you can go, like you're saying, you go to a conference, they're going to talk about the same thing you know all about. I want the one nugget. They have to say something I can use, and that's 99% of the time I can find that. There is that 1% sometimes where I really feel I wasted my time and money. Yeah. But normally I can always take something away and I can use it immediately. And that's Absolutely. What we try to give people, right? That's kind of part of what coaching is.
Well, and one of the giveaways, is the idea that people can go onto your page, the startupcoachingcall.com, and they can get to know you a little bit better. They can download your one page startup success toolkit to be able to really get engaged into taking their wantrepreneur idea and turn it into a solopreneur idea. And that's at the startupcoachingcall.com page. And I think that's a great first step, because it's free and it just lets people just to get to really get into action of putting a plan together, because random people doing random things produces random results. So start off with a plan and then go out and safely test that plan. And I think in doing so, they're going to be able to really get engaged with their idea and really see if it has legs.
Yeah, I think it's really important. On that call, you're with other people in the same place. We all start. And I always tell people, when you're new at something, guess what level you start at? Awful. Mm-hmm. That's your starting point. We all did. When I first got in the ring, broken nose, couldn't chew for 3 days. Okay, first time in, I went back the next day. Okay. I went back the next to get better. Right. But I started at really awful. Okay. And then now I'm a champion. Right. I became that. I did this. I did that because I went back and back and back and work. But you got to start at awful. Just understand that's where you're at. Anyone who's great started the same place you're at. So just remember
going from awful, or going so rather from if going from starting point to greatness is a short period of time, that's not greatness. It's like a goal that can be achieved easily is a task. It's not a goal. And so the idea is, if you want to shoot for goals, it's got to be something that's difficult, and you're going to be terrible at it the first time you do it.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy on the journey. It's training, it's pushing, it's doing hard things. That's the whole concept here. That's why only like 3% of the people are entrepreneurs, if that much, right? We're different. And if you're feeling this urge and you got this idea, you want to get out there, you need to understand it's not the idea or product per se. It's going to be the work involved to take it to the public. It could change the world, but not if you don't work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And again, for people to reach out to you, go to the startupcoachingcall.com website and download that one pager. I think it's a really good first step. It's free. It's easy to connect with him and get that going. And Richard, as I said, absolute pleasure. Great conversation, good idea development, and really to help people get into action of getting on that journey to become the entrepreneur.
Thanks, Steve. This has been very good. Great exchange, man. I love it. I love business. I just love it.
And I do too. And that's why we have the money, the mindset, the mentoring podcast. And we'll see you on the next one.